All right, let's go straight away to the VIP hotline. Joe diGenova is with me, founding partner of the Washington, D.C.-based law firm diGenova and Tensing, and he was the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia in the 80s. He was also chief counsel and staff director of the Senate Rules Committee and counsel to the Senate Judiciary, Governmental Affairs, and Select Intelligence Committee. So, Joe, it's great to have you, and you're a perfect person to comment on what happened yesterday. I'm sure you caught a little bit of my thoughts there, but I just want to get it from you. 30,000-foot perspective. What do you think happened? What do you think? Give it to me.
Well, I think the Democrats' worst nightmare occurred, and that is that Christine Blasey Ford testified, and it was a terrible mistake. Because what you saw was a terribly, terribly troubled woman with deep, deep emotional problems. Just think about this. This is a woman in her 50s who 35 years ago said she was someone attempted to assault her sexually. She then cannot tell you where it happened, when it happened, how she got there, how she left. She left her best friend there, presumably to be raped by these two madmen. Her testimony was adolescent in nature. Her emotional state after 35 years was literally unbelievable. In my opinion, the best thing that happened to Judge Kavanaugh with the public disclosure of these now clearly false allegations was that people got to see her. They got to see him. And then, of course, the topper of the day was Senator Lindsey Graham, who, in my opinion, gets the Profile and Courage Award of the decade. He saved a Supreme Court nomination and shamed fellow Republicans who might otherwise have been doubtful into understanding the stakes, the grown-up stakes, when you allow a bunch of Democratic thugs who betrayed their oath of office to the United States Senate and who should all be up on ethics charges in the Senate. He saved the Senate. This was a great moment in American history, and I am so glad that the cameras were rolling for the moment when Lindsey Graham threw off the mantle of John McCain and became his own person. That was a new Lindsey Graham yesterday. He is not the same person he was last week. And I have to tell you, I am so proud of Lindsey Graham and what he did. You just cannot believe what it's like in this town, what it was like last night. That was one of the great moments in American history. And I am so thrilled that it was on tape. And to watch the Democrats with their mouths agape, unable to respond except for the unbelievably stupid and lame response of Dianne Feinstein, a woman who is now infamous for her duplicity and dishonesty.
Yes, and I got a feeling she's going to have to answer, at least publicly, if not in a legal setting, to a lot of questions. But that is, Joe, almost, I don't know if this is good or bad radio, but that's virtually my identical thoughts. And I want to come back to the Lindsey Graham page, but I definitely need to touch on with you the Christine Blasey Ford testimony that you're going to hear. Even our pals in conservative media that you and I probably agree with 90% of the time, you're going to hear a lot of she was highly credible, highly believable, and gave a great testimony throughout the day today. And I'm going to strain my eyes rolling them into the back of my head. And I want to tell you that I have no doubt she was a victim of some type of abuse at some point. I do not believe there is still a single shred of evidence it has anything to do with Judge Kavanaugh. And I think there is a preponderance of evidence that she is being used by the Democratic Party to fulfill an end game and to play a game and to serve a purpose. And this is someone who is clearly troubled, and she was trotted out there by a cynical Democratic establishment and a media that wants so badly to have Brett Kavanaugh destroyed. And I'm actually a little bit, Joe, and this is what I want to get your thoughts on. How come so many of our pals in the conservative media are not going to say that? They're going to state that she was highly credible, and they're going to keep using that word.
I have no idea, because it is clear to me, after having been a prosecutor and a congressional counsel overseeing confirmation hearings for judges and everybody else, that this woman, whatever may be her state of mind, is a deeply troubled person. There is not a scintilla of physical, intellectual, corroborative evidence to her story. In fact, it is a fantasy. It never happened. There is no evidence it ever happened. Her unconfirmed personal report, given her own admission of her mental and emotional problems, makes her story simply unbelievable. She was an emotional wreck. If you want to say that's credibility, fine. She was an emotional wreck. But that was self-induced. There is nothing on the record to confirm that Judge Kavanaugh did anything. And when you look at what she said and how she said it, this nonsense about she's afraid to fly, and here she is flying all over the world to surf and look at mountains and the size of waves. And they lied through their teeth about it when they said she was in California. She was in Dewey Beach, Delaware, in Indian Beach. Can you imagine? The reason they didn't accept the staff of the committee flying to California to interview her is that if the staff went there and landed, she would have been in Dewey Beach.
It's very powerful analysis. And Joe, I said nearly the identical thing. And I'll tell you, at Breitbart, we thought that was immediately disqualifying when it came out a couple days ago that she had given her polygraph test in Maryland, and we were delaying the hearing because she can't fly, but she's jet setting across the country back and forth. And I'm not even saying, trust me, this is not about her. I'm sure she is being coached or counseled to say these things. It is not a personal attack. It is an attack on the process. And the process was they were going to delay this hearing because she can't fly, when her background, her hobbies, where she's going is all based. She took a flight from Manchester to Baltimore, which would be like a 7-hour drive. Why is she flying? And it doesn't make any sense. This is not enough.
Interesting point, Alex, because for all the criticism that Rachel Mitchell took, the prosecutor from Arizona who was doing the questioning, she was a perfect foil for Christine Blasey Ford, because Rachel Mitchell was able to, through a non-confrontational form of questioning, which is the way you are trained to examine a alleged sexual assault victim, she won her confidence. And it was a sign of Ford's mental instability that attorney Rachel Mitchell was able to draw out of her by developing confidence very quickly through a non-threatening dialogue. She actually admitted without any difficulty that she flew all over the world, had no problem doing it, and did it for fun and for business. And Mitchell was able to draw that out and established one of the most disturbing sets of facts was that it was a lie that she couldn't fly to Washington. In fact, she had flown several times over the last few months between Washington and California to prepare for this. So I give A+ to Miss Mitchell. And at the right moment, the Republicans pulled the plug on her and turned to the members, and it was superb.
Yeah, and that was, I have to say, I was kind of seeing where they were going to go with this, with the Mitchell questioning, the extremely calm, slow burn of it. And then it really did work. And this is where you have to refrain from judgment. We have to be adults sometimes, and because the tactic was not what I would have anticipated. It was a little slow for my liking at the beginning, but I'm smart enough to see maybe there's something happening here. Maybe this is a plan. And boy, was it well executed, Joe.
But I'll tell you this. She drew the Democrats into a false sense of security.
She did. That's exactly right. Okay, so we covered Rachel Mitchell. We have covered Christine Blasey Ford. Give me your thoughts on Judge Kavanaugh, how he comported himself.
He actually surpassed Clarence Thomas. I was completely taken aback by the ferocity of his defense, and I use the word ferocity because it was ferocious. And it threw the Democrats for a loop. They did not know what to do. Even the sleazy Cory Booker, the groper from New Jersey, had the unmitigated gall to press ahead with his stupid questions. But when all was said and done, the Democrats didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to question him. And that nitwit from Hawaii, Mazie Hirono, what a disgrace to the Senate. The Democrats had put themselves in a position. They went on display with what they think is their best, and it ended up being their worst face. They may have done more damage to their 2018 electoral prospects by that unprofessional, undignified, sleazy performance than any group of campaign commercials ever could have done. I think Judge Kavanaugh was so good and so honest and so compelling that by the time Lindsey Graham was able to make his historic, and I underscore, historic presentation to the chamber and the world, it was over. It was over. And everybody expected Kavanaugh to roll over and play dead, and he would have none of it. This was a brilliant performance by a jurist who is not known for anything other than quiet, non-tempestuous contemplation. He pulled out of the bag what I call righteous Catholic indignation. This was in essence a burning at the stake. What they were doing
yes, that's right,
with Kavanaugh was burning him at the stake, and he would have none of it.
Yes, that's exactly how it felt. And it did find with both Graham and Kavanaugh's testimonies there or speeches, however you want to frame it. There was a genuineness to it. There was an authenticity that I think came through very clear with the entire world watching. A couple of quick questions for you, Joe. You've already been generous with your time. But the Democrats demanding an FBI investigation, in fact, going a step further, and Dick Durbin with a absurd stunt suggesting that Brett Kavanaugh call for an FBI investigation into himself repeatedly. And this is all they've got that they needed. It obviously, to you and me, I know we think it's a stall tactic, but is there anything to it? Should they investigate, talk to Mark Judge? I mean, is there anything left to know about this situation?
No, there isn't. And in fact, we should all call for an FBI investigation of Keith Ellison, the Democratic candidate for Attorney General in Minnesota. That's where the FBI should be. Keith Ellison. This is nonsense. This is the typical Durbin maneuver, the mellifluous tones, the quiet voice, with the dagger in his hand, stabbing you in the back. Dick Durbin is one of the most despicable human beings on the face of the earth, but he is of a piece of that panel. When you look at that group of people on the Democratic side, they are a despicable, unethical bunch. I am just so pleased that these hearings turned out the way they did, because America got a look at what the Democratic Party has become. These are fundamentally dishonest people, power hungry. And what Lindsey Graham said to them, all you want is power. I hope you never get it. He was speaking from his soul,
yes,
the way Republicans feel deeply and Americans who care and are decent care. The Democratic Party is no longer a party. It is a gang. It is a gang of thugs. And the quiet-spoken thuggery of a guy like Durbin, can you imagine? That's like MS-13 calling for an FBI investigation of their activities. This is nonsense. And it showed just how desperate and fundamentally dishonest the Democrats are. I'll tell you this. I don't know if they have the votes in committee. I'm assuming they do because they've called for a vote. And I'm assuming that Joe Manchin, after his statements last night, is going to vote for Kavanaugh because his seat in West Virginia will depend on whether or not he votes. Kavanaugh has over 80% approval in West Virginia. What the hell do you think Manchin's going to do? These people, these idiots analyzing this. I hope they have enough votes. I'm assuming since they have scheduled it for a committee vote and a floor vote, they do. It will be one of the great moments in American history when Kavanaugh is confirmed. He is a good and decent man who has been besmirched and traduced by the Democrats May they all rot in hell. Every single Democrat on that committee should rot in hell.
It is. I know these are stark words, Joe, and the last thing we'll wrap up here. It is hard to fathom the evil of falsely accusing someone of gang rape repeatedly, encouraging the media to do it. And then they had the nerve yesterday to announce that he was too angry, that he did not have the right disposition for a Supreme Court justice. I have to tell you that my reputation on the show, and I got a feeling we're going to do this again, you'll find that I'm a very calm individual. I take emotion out of things. And even though Breitbart's got a reputation for throwing bombs, if you guys look back at it, in retrospect, most of them are they're over the target. They're dialed in. We're not throwing them at random. There's a lot of method to the madness around here. And I'll tell you that if someone accused me of half of the things, I would be twice as mad as Brett Kavanaugh was. I have no clue why you would want anything else. If you were even a remotely open-minded American, why you wouldn't want to see that fire and passion defending his family and defending his name.
Of course. And let me just say this to you about what you just said about how you like to be 30,000 feet above and back and don't throw bombs. I have been in this town since 1967. I've practiced law. I've been a United States attorney. I've been an independent counsel. I've been counsel to Congress, Senate, and House committees. I've conducted oversight hearings. I've conducted confirmation hearings in the Senate. When you become involved in something like this, the way some of us have, who've been in the center of town, knowing Brett Kavanaugh as many years as I have, knowing his family, knowing the decency of these people, knowing Senator Graham and a whole bunch of senators, people on the House side, Mark Meadows, all these wonderful people, Jim Jordan, Devin Nunes. What has happened as a result of the resistance against the president and now his nominee for the Supreme Court is a coalescing of people who realize that this is about the state of the republic. This was not just a nomination for the Supreme Court. This was the battle for the soul of the Constitution. And the statement of Judge Kavanaugh yesterday and the incredible speech, the historic speech of Lindsey Graham, were moments in history that all of us who fight this fight live for.
That's true.
We have been emboldened by what happened yesterday. And this fight now takes on a different tone and color. I hope that Republicans and independents and good faith Democrats around the country who care about their country and care about the Constitution will get out and vote in November. This is about the future of our country. What you saw on display by the Democrats in that committee was the raw political power that they will wield against people of goodwill. And all you have to do to know that that is what's going to happen is look at what the IRS did to conservative groups under Lois Lerner and John Koskinen. This is the future of our country if the Democrats get control of the House and Senate. They are vile people. There is nothing good anymore to be said about the Democratic Party. They have eschewed all integrity, all honesty in the pursuit of power. They are an ugly people, and they need to be beaten down politically and defeated.
It's Joe diGenova and Tensing is the law firm. I know you guys are probably familiar with him for his commentary on Fox. That he shows up a lot. Joe, do you have anything else to plug today?
No, I'm just happy for America this morning.
We all are, at least mostly in this audience, and we're going to keep breaking this down. It's a pleasure, sir. Brilliant analysis. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.